So we have Bruce live in the locker room in Tallahassee celebrating on the field with the Florida State. And I don't know why, but like we were able to run the ball so well in the first half, especially to the left side, and then all of a sudden we started to abandon it. And like I said, there is some inconsistent.
How are they going to approach this game? How are they going to beat this Florida State team?
Well, we're going to break you guys.
Okay, that's it. The show's over.
In the story, we're going to break you guys. Look, and I'm joking, but it's true.
Lord, the climb continues, KB. Oh my God!
I am sweating.
Look at my heart. Look.
You know what? Yeah, I have so much to say. All right. Welcome back to Seminole Sideline 365. Thank you for coming in. Tonight it's just going to be me. The old man is somewhere traveling. I don't know where he is. But it's been a busy week. Some interesting news came out, and I felt like I had to discuss it. A lot of fans, I got on Twitter late tonight, got off work late, and saw a lot of people reacting to it. So I thought I'd give my 2 cents and give y'all a place to vent as well with the I shouldn't say vent. I don't know if vent is the right word, but a place to voice your thoughts with the word of these contract extensions that Florida State has given their staff. That news broke, I believe, earlier this afternoon. Apparently, this happened in December, but the public records request by, I believe, 24/7 Sports is what made it live. So now it's out there, and everyone is aware of it now. And people have been reacting to it, right? And does the staff deserve an extension? Did these coaches deserve to get this? So we'll discuss that. We'll get your thoughts on that, because I think there is a lot of conflicting responses to this. A lot of people are kind of pissed that did coaches that are underperforming in terms of recruiting, did they deserve to be extended and get more money and be here for another 2 years? And did Norvell need to make some changes this offseason? So that's going to be a big topic tonight, and I want to get your all thoughts and your comments and questions about that. And then we'll talk about recruiting. We've gotten some visitors already today and this week, because as we all know, this team needs to bring in some more talent, especially in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line, linebacking, core. We even got some skill positions that are looking to be filled on the wide receiver position, running back position. Florida State's looking to fill some positions, and they're bringing some guys in finally. And we hope to get some commitments pop this weekend. That's my hope, at least. So, and I think that's probably your hope too. So we'll discuss that, and then we'll see what other news is popping around college football and go into that. So Peter already says we're good. Pete, I think I can agree with you on some areas. Let's dive right into it. Because I think there's going to be mixed reactions on this. But let's dive right into the topic now. So as it broke, and I was going to bring up the article here, basically everyone on the staff got retained and is getting a decent extension. So everyone from Odell to John to Surtain, who I think we all do agree deserves that extension for what he's done since he's joined the staff recruiting rise, is getting an extension. Most of them through 2026. A couple, including Atkins, through 2027, are getting sizable extensions, which I'm never going to hate on people getting more money, more job security, which is great. But it stirred a kind of a reaction on Twitter. A lot of people are pissed because of the fact that many have seen, and I brought this up a couple of times, many feel that in certain position areas, offensive line, defensive line, linebacking core, that recruiting and sometimes development has not been where it needs to be. And that should be reflected in who you retain on your staff. As you can tell right now, Florida State is kind of scrambling to fill positions of need. We're bringing in defensive ends, and we'll discuss that. The kid from Colorado State, the kid, Oregon State, DJ, our new quarterback, is trying to recruit guys from Oregon State to come over all across the country to come fill in some gaps on the defensive line. Because the last couple cycles, we've only signed one four-star defensive lineman. One four-star defensive lineman in the last 3 cycles has been signed by Odell and recruited by Odell. There's certain position coaches on this team I feel like have not been able to necessarily do think recruit the way they need to be. That's what I'll say. And there's going to be the argument is that, well, look at Jared Verse, look at Braden Fisk, look at Jermaine Johnson. That is true, absolutely right. And that's not to say that these coaches can't coach. I believe Odell's can definitely coach up guys, can develop guys. I believe that Randy Shannon can probably coach linebackers pretty well, or he wouldn't have a job at all, right? He would have never had a head coaching job at all. But we have to ask ourselves at some point, if the transfer portal went away next year, let's do a hypothetical situation. If the transfer portal went away next year, would you look at these coaches the same way? Would you look at Odell the same way in terms of what he's brought to the roster if he could no longer use the transfer portal? Because that shouldn't affect the transfer portal shouldn't affect who he's able to get out of high school recruiting, right? He should be able to bring the best and the brightest out of high school ranks, right? But he's been struggling with that. I mean, this team is 23 and 4 the last 2 seasons, and yet we still struggle to bring in elite defensive linemen. I'm talking 4 and 5 stars. We're missing on, and we've become reliant, almost as a crutch, using the transfer portal to bring in Braden Fisk, Jared Verge, Jermaine Johnson, bring in those guys to supplement this line. And we're having to do it in another offseason because we don't have those high school guys who are true sophomores, redshirt sophomores who we can now bring up and be ready to play. Because we saw a glimpse of that in the Georgia game, right? We were missing a lot of guys. I understand that. A lot of guys, were opted out, injured. But it also was a chance to see what we had who would be playing in 2024, right? It was a chance to see what our backups looked like. And that defensive line, I hate to state it, no one popped out except for who we expected to pop out on that defensive end side, which is Patrick Payton when he had the strip sack and almost fumble recovery. And that one play, that was the only defensive play of the game that really stood out to me and potentially you. I didn't see Darrell Jackson, make a lot of plays, but that's to be expected. He was out most of the season. I still expect him to make an impact next year. But Dennis Briggs, Daniel Lyons, Brian Turner, these guys are Brian Turner's going to be a redshirt junior next year. Daniel Lyons is going to be a redshirt sophomore next year. Jaden Jones is going to be a redshirt junior next year. Dante Anderson is going to be a redshirt sophomore. Are these guys ready to make that next step in the system on the defensive line? And that's defensive ends. And I just don't think – I think we've brought in so many 3-star guys that take longer to develop that now we are having to rely on the portal as a crutch to still compete at a high level. And that's why I put in the hypothetical scenario that if the portal went away, would we look at Odell the same way? Would we say Odell is a elite coach that can bring us, can win us help us win a national championship in the trenches? Because I think he's done a great job of securing guys like Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and Fabian Lovett. But those guys were all transfers, right? And we cannot forget Darrell Jackson. We can't forget that most of these high impact guys have been from the portal. They haven't been brought up from high school recruits. And you could say the game's changed, Keith. The game's changed. It's not the way it's always been. But when you look at the great programs, the ones that are winning multiple national championships, they aren't relying on 10, 15 transfer portal guys every single year. They're building up a pipeline of talent so that if guys churn out of their program or if guys get injured, they do have elite 4 or 5-star talent that they can call up and they can say, it's your turn. Or, you're ready to play as an elite 5-star freshman or an elite true sophomore, right? You don't have to hope that you win the battle in the portal against an Alabama or a Georgia or an Ohio State or an Oregon, right? Because it's now so competitive in recruiting because of the money that's involved, NIL deals, everything, that you don't always want to have to rely on the portal because it's so damn competitive out there, right? And I think that's the part that scares me is that we just haven't been able to, those coaches have not been able to get it done in the high school ranks. That's the part that concerns me. What's going on, Mike? Thanks for coming by. We appreciate you being here, and let us know your thoughts on this as well. But that's really my point with Odell. He has to step, and that's the assurance I would need if I was Mike Norvell is Odell. We need to start landing this elite talent, because when you look at Georgia and who they're landing, and I hate to bring up Georgia so soon, but that is the gold standard in my eyes. Even though they're not in the national championship game this year, to me, they are the gold standard. I mean, you look at their blue chip rate, 85%. You look at the guys that they brought in four or 5-star defensive linemen just in this last class. We've brought in 3 over the last 3 classes, 4 stars or above. That's where we need to go, where we are not as reliant on transfers, where they're bringing in 4 or 5 selectively, and we're not just trying to overhaul our defensive line like we are this season, right? You can see how many visitors, and we'll talk about those visitors we have coming up. That's the part that scares me, because I feel like the portal, even though Mike and the staff have done a great job in the portal, I'll keep saying that. They have done a great job, and kudos to them for doing that. But when you become reliant on the portal, it feels sometimes like a gamble, that sometimes you're going to win. Some years you're going to win the portal, and sometimes you may miss out on the right commits. And I think one of the ways that they may have missed out is when you lose a commitment from Nick Scorton from Purdue. This is a kid right here that I think is probably the best D end available in the portal, and he committed to Texas A&M this year. 10 sacks last year, 6'4", 285, would have been a perfect complement to what Patrick Payne brings to you. This is the Jared Verse of the portal this year, except, obviously he comes from Purdue, but in terms of trying to get to a bigger program, you lost that battle in the portal. But you can, he's going back to Texas. You understand that, but that's where some of these battles you're not going to win. And when you miss out on talent like that, you wish you had talent from high school that you could rely on. You wish you had a 5-star freshman that was ready to step up or say, it's my turn. Let's rely on you. You don't have that right now. So that's where you're bringing in guys now that you hope can turn into that. So you've got the kid from Grady Kelly, I believe his name is, from defensive tackle from Colorado, who looks like a good player. 1.5 sacks last year, 35 tackles, 6.5 for a loss. Looks like a good kid, good offers out there, but still not the same level of talent that you would have gotten from Nick from Purdue. So that's Odell. I'll leave Odell alone for a second. The same argument could be applied to Randy Shannon. The linebacking group, you have to be very concerned about, because there is no depth at that position. Look at what we lost. Kalen DeLoach, in my eyes, an FSU legend. He probably won't get his name retired, but I will remember his name forever for what he turned into, what he invested in this team, and just the type of player he became over the course of 4 or 5 years. I love Kalen. He great, amazing player. Tane Bethune, same type of deal. But he was you got him out of the portal from UCF, developed him into a great player. And he already was a great player at the UCF, right? It wasn't like you had to mold him out of clay. He was a really good player at UCF, and you were lucky that the portal was open to get him into this group. You lost DJ Lundy to the portal. So once again, you lost him out of the portal, and he was a rotational guy. And I think you saw that you could improve at that position. He kind of struggled in space, but he was a rotational player. But you saw in the Georgia game with Tane Bethune out, no DJ Lundy, Kalen DeLoach couldn't do it all. He couldn't do it all against an elite team. And when your defensive line was missing guys, that puts more pressure on who? The linebackers. And when you're playing Blake Nicholson and Omar Graham, who are true freshmen, or retro freshmen, Omar Graham's part, and then Justin Cryer, who's a true freshman, you got no shot, right? And especially when Omar Graham and Justin Cryer are these aren't, it's no offense to them, but they're going to need time to develop. These aren't 5-star guys who have bodies automatically built for the speed of Georgia and the size of Georgia, right? So once again, you have struggled to bring in elite linebackers, and Blake Nicholson is a good recruit. That is one hit I will give to Randy Shannon, is out of the last 3 cycles, Blake Nicholson's the only 4/5-star guy he's brought in, but that is the one hit he's gotten. you wish you've had 3 or 4 of him, because that's the only, talent depth you have. You could say he was in high school, he played running back, quarterback, multiple positions. So he wasn't even a true linebacker. He was just kind of rated based on his talent potential. Even though I think he could become something great at Florida State, but he's not there yet. We saw that. He needs to put on size, be built by storms, as we say, right? But what you lost in the linebacking room just shows you again, Florida State does not have depth built up at some of these key positions in the trenches on the defensive line, in the linebacking group. Because if we were to say it's Blake, Omar, and Justin next year, how confident would you be that they're going to be able to hold down that against Clemson, Miami, Louisville, Notre Dame, some on paper very talented teams, right? Some of those kids, I believe, need more time to develop in the system, get their bodies developed up, because they just, they weren't out of high school ready for this, right? Ready for, playing some of these teams. And so that's where I look at Randy Shannon. I say he hasn't been holding up his part of the bargain consistently enough to say, project ahead and say, when we lose our stars and Tatum and Kalen, and if we lose a guy like DJ, who's a rotational piece, what does our roster look like? That's where these coaches have to be able to look ahead and project, what does our roster look like in 2 years and 3 years? And I know it gets hard with the unpredictability of the portal. That's why having a high school recruiting class every single year helps you with some of that unpredictability, right? Because you have new guys coming in that can backfill what you're losing in the portal. And that's where I have to put that on him and say, Randy, what have you been doing? Why don't we have guys ready to step up that are going into their sophomore year, that are ready to take over, are ready to play football? Because I'm not sure these guys are necessarily ready yet. Let me put some of your comments up. Sorry, I'm trying to manage all these screens, stuff like that. We're now recruiting the trenches. Shannon can go and Coach P can go. Yeah, Corey, like you were talking about with Shannon, I have to agree with you there. We'll get into Coach P. Defensive end wise, like you said, the depth isn't there. Patrick Payne was a great get. But once again, there has to be more recruiting. There has to be more looking forward to say, why isn't there more depth there, right? It can't just be, we're going to rely on the portal every single year, because that gets risky, like we just talked about. Coach Odell's a legacy at FSU, and like Coach, he's then going to get fired. The College Football Media Review, you are right. And if the old man was here, if my co-host was here, he would definitely agree with you. It's been the issue with Coach Hamilton, and he brought Florida State to its highest peak, and we're seeing it go back to its lowest, right? With the FSU basketball program. He will have to go on his own, right? Kind of like with Bobby Bowden, Hall of Fame coach. And it was hard to let him go, but he had to kind of go on his own, right? It had to be his time to go. And I think with Odell, you're right. It may be one of those scenarios where he's going to have to hang it up, or he's going to negotiate something where he has an off-field role. And it's hard. I understand that. Like, nobody will love Odell more than any other FSU fan. We respect what he's done, what he's working with Bobby Bowden, everything. But it's at some point, Mike Norvell has to say, if we want to be a championship caliber program, we got to get elite recruiters in every position, or at least more than our defensive back position. It can't just be Pat Surtain being the elite recruiter on this team. Mike says, I just feel like things can get better, and I don't know that Coach Norvell will make changes if and when it needs to. Continue to believe in Coach Norvell and his plan. Yeah, that's the thing. And Bud Elliott said this on his show, and I like the Nolecast. I think Bud makes some realistic points and is one of the more realistic commentators about Florida State football, and doesn't just kind of sugarcoat things for what fans want to hear. But one thing he brought up on the show a couple of weeks ago was that, Mike Norvell may not know what an elite college football program, like an elite recruiting process looks like, or elite recruiting setup looks like. Because his first head coaching program was at Memphis, right? And it's not like you're recruiting 5-star freshmen there, but he developed the hell out of all players. He found gems in the rough. He found 2-3-star guys and made them into NFL players. And it was great. It was unbelievable. He built Memphis up, and it was a great thing. And that's what got him to Florida State, right? But that doesn't work. You have to do better than that at Florida State. in the ACC and the Big Ten and wherever Florida State goes next, you have to be recruiting 4 or 5-star players and getting the most out of them. You can't be relying on getting 3 stars and making them into 4 or 5 stars. You have to be getting 4 or 5 stars and getting the most out of that talent, right? And you have to build. It can't just be you doing it all too. You have to get coaches around you that you trust in, who are going to be doing their jobs every single day and getting the best players at every position, right? So I thought that was an interesting point that he brought up. Hindock says, excited to see James Jones this season. Yeah, James Jones is an interesting prospect. Like he said, the transferred in. I think he come in from community college last year. And once again, a guy that needs to work up his body a little bit, but he's going to have an opportunity. I know we're bringing in some guys, and I think it's smart that they bring in some transfers at the defensive end position, because I think Patrick Payton, as great of a player as he is, he's at his best. He's great when he has a complementary piece on the end. Jared Verse and Patrick Payton were the best complementary pieces, right? Because Jared Verse, he brought a lot of double teams on his side, and Patrick Payton, for his size and his length, he's optimized when he has a single, a one-on-one, right? With his speed and like I said, his length. So I think Florida State needs to find that complementary piece on the other edge for Patrick Payton. And James Jones, maybe he is that guy. Maybe he gets developed once again with another year under his belt, and he's ready to play this season. But I'm excited to see if they can get this kid from Oregon State that I'm sure DJ is recruiting, or who they bring in. But I do believe that they need to bring in a couple more bodies on this defensive line. I don't think there's a question about it. Jamal says, need to chill. We just went 13-0. We'll be fine. I get it. No, I get it. I'm not going to complain about going 13-0, but I don't think you can be complacent either. And that's the difference. I think you can never be satisfied. And you just saw what Ohio State did, right? Ohio State, by all matters, is a great program. I never been a hate on programs just to hate on programs just because we're rivals, or if a rival program's doing a great job, I'll give them kudos for that. Ohio State isn't a rival, but they had Ohio State had a pretty decent season, but they just made dramatic changes, and they seem to be 11-2, right? And they're going to be retooling most of their roster, it looks like, probably keeping, Brian Hartline as the ace recruiter on their staff. So Ryan Day is saying we need to make changes, right? And they basically had, 11 plus win season. Now they're struggling to beat Michigan. So that's one change they need to make. Sometimes their offense was sputtering, but this is and that's where I think a lot of the comparisons are coming from. Does Mike Norvell need to make Ryan Day like changes at Florida State to continue to compete at the highest level? Because I don't think you can ever get complacent. 13-0 is great, but it doesn't take much in this competitive age of college football, as we all know, it doesn't take much to drop down a peg. Look at Clemson. They went from being the top of the top to, a 10-win team, to kind of swagger, to wobbling a little bit. And now I'm not to say Clemson's fallen off their pedestal, because they are still very dangerous and they bring in top talent. But it doesn't take much to wobble. If you are off your game, if you get stagnant in what you do and how you recruit, you can be easily wobbled and you can take a step back. And I do not want to see Florida State take a step back. And that's why I get scared about getting complacent with our coaching staff. Right? And that's why do we have the ability to get another Patrick Surtain on this team? Because look at the class he just brought in. Look at the DBs we just got this year, right? Could we not do that at the defensive line position if we were to look at other coaches, right? Look at Charles Lester and Kai Bates and Jamari Howard, and that's 1 year under Patrick Surtain, right? If we got a new coach or an assistant coach on the defensive line, we made changes there. Could we get more 4 stars on the defensive line, defensive end? If we got rid of John or replaced John, that's, it could, is that how we elevate to the next level? And once again, I think development those guys have done to help the portal guys come in and do what they do best. They've done a great job of that. But you have to be a balanced coach. You have to be able to do all 3 phases. You have to be able to develop guys. You have to be able to recruit guys. You have to be able to retain guys, right? You have to be able to do all 3 great in today's college football, especially if you want to be a top 5 program. And for Florida State to barely, and I mean, barely get according to On3, and that's what I like to use just because their user interface. I mean, Florida State's gone, 23-4, 23-3 the last 2 seasons, and you're still outside the top 10 recruiting classes. That's the thing that scares me is Mike Norvell is doing a great job of coaching these guys up and game planning, and the staff is doing the paper stuff very well, getting guys in the right position to win ball games, right? But this piece right here is not coming together. Florida State needs to be recruiting the best talent at a higher level, right? You should be ahead of Notre Dame. You should be ahead of Auburn. You should be in the top 5. We need to, no offense, but we should be recruiting at the Miami level, even though there's a lot of 3 stars in that. So I'm happy with that, taking less 3 stars. I'm happy with that. But, I think Florida State needs to figure out a way to be consistently top 7, top 8, top 5 classes if we want to get to the level of the Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State and consistently be there. And I think it can happen, but I do think some tweaks need to be made to the staff. Now, when we look at the salary, I want to take a look at the salaries real quick of the staff, because I think that does make a difference too. So these are the staff, and this may be a little hard to see. So this is the last year's data. So these have gone up a little bit, just minorly with the new contract extensions. But you can see that Alan Fuller is the top paid assistant on the staff, which I believe he deservedly paid. I think Alan Fuller's done a great job as a defensive coordinator at Florida State. I'm not going to argue that. I think he's done a great job with the personnel. A guy who was in hot water, I think, originally at Florida State. But I think a lot of people have come around to, and I think he's done a great job with the personnel and the play calling. And now he's considered one of the top defensive coordinators in the country. So I think he's done a great job, and I think he deserves that. And he's probably, maybe some would consider he's only the number 34 ranked, paid assistant coach in the country. So you may be getting him for a bargain right now. Behind him is Alex Atkins. One question I have for you guys is why isn't Alex Atkins on the hot seat? Why is it that Randy Shannon gets a lot of heat? Why is it that Odell gets a lot of heat? John Baptiste gets a lot of heat. Why does Atkins get the slide? This is a guy that 2 or 3 years ago, we were like, he may go and get another job somewhere. But so far, this Florida State offensive line hasn't become elite yet. I'm unclear why of all these tweets I'm seeing and stuff like that, and Alex Atkins got the longest extension. He got extended until 2027. I haven't seen the Atkins effect on this offensive line yet. This is, in my opinion, this isn't a very average offensive line. This line doesn't dominate anybody. And I think we had the benefit of Jordan Travis's mobility many, many times to bail out when the line really broke down. And luckily, we'll have the strength and mobility of DJ this year as well. But do you all feel that Alex Atkins is somewhat getting up? He is a well-paid assistant on the staff, right? He got a pay raise with his latest extension. He'll be probably a top 35, top 40 paid assistant coach this year again. But we have yet to see any of the, top recruited guys for him starting a line. Julian Armella, once again, is he ready to step up? I mean, Luke, it's not like he's bringing in these huge hauls of 4 stars either. I mean, outside of Julian Armella and Lucas Simmons, where is this rehaul? Once again, the portal has almost become a crutch for him as well, because look at all the offensive linemen we're looking at in the portal right now. So go back to my hypothetical scenario. If the portal didn't exist, would we look at Alex Atkins the same way? Right? Would we look at him as, this great coach if the portal didn't exist? Or is that used as a crutch for him because we're not able to get the elite offensive linemen that we need out of high school? Like, why are we not getting 3 or 4 4-star offensive linemen that are now ready 2 years later to play or to rotate in. I mean, we're still using the 3 or 4 same offensive linemen. We're still not elite players on the offensive line that are hurt. And when they get hurt, we're in trouble. And now we're trying to get the backup from Alabama to come by. You know, when do we see the Atkins effect kick in with his recruiting and his guys ready to play? That's what I want to ask, because he seems to get a pass when everyone else gets heat. Whether it be Fuller a couple of years ago, whether it be Odell now, whether it be John, on the defensive end side, whether it be Randy Shannon with the linebackers, which that can all be fair, but Atkins gets the pass. So that's the only thing that, I don't understand. Hypnotic says, need to see some big improvement from the O-line this season. I agree with you. I agree. I need to see something out of that line, because every year it's going to get better. It's going to get better. This is the year, but we're playing with the same players. The personnel remains the same outside of a couple portal pieces. Why do we expect it to get better? This high school guys that he's recruiting that aren't ready don't ever play. So why do we expect the same? It's insanity. Because no one else is coming new. It's the same guys over and over who don't get replaced or get recruited over. It's the same guys playing. So I don't expect it to get better next year. If anything, it may regress. Right? Atkins is supposed to be one of the top recruiters on staff, but is he? I mean, that's the thing I'm questioning. Because, is he? I'm not seeing the recruits on the offensive line come in. Is he helping with other positions that he's helped closing? Because I'm not seeing the offensive line. Like I said, Lucas Simmons, great. That's a good grit. Jonathan Daniels, I don't know. I saw the videos at the Under Armour camp, and he got bowled over. So I don't know if he's going to be ready to play in 2 years or 3 years. And then Julian Armella has been here, what now, 2.5 years? Is he going to be ready to play next year? He didn't get any playing snaps this year. So is he going to be ready to play? I want these guys to work out, but we have not brought in, and a lot of these guys, Jalen Early, is he ready to play? When are these guys going to be ready to play? I want to see some of these elite Alex Atkins recruits or be ready to play. I want to see the Atkins effect. Show me the Atkins effect, because once again, he gets a pass, nobody else does. Also, I was told we have to hold on to him because he was going to get all these job offers. I mean, I'm not seeing those. I still think he has something to prove at this program, just like all these other coaches do. All these coaches have to prove something, but I want to see the Atkins effect on this line. They made him co-OC, that's why, but he's slipping on recruiting too. Well, that's a good point, Corey. That's a good point for why he's getting paid more. That's totally true. And I think to that point, that was one of the retention tools, is to give him a better title, more money, to your point. But we do need to see that recruitment game go up, because it hasn't worked. Missing the old man, yeah, he does give some parity, and I think he would. It'd be interesting to see if he would agree with me or not. So that's a good point. That's a good point. And then the last thing in terms of the coaching staff is that it's a. Sorry, my dog is chewing on something. The last thing I want to discuss is that, do you think that Florida State, because we're looking at the numbers here, and Florida State does not, like I said, top two assistants are paid in the top 50 of all assistant coaches, Fuller and Atkins. John Papachuas is 140, Randy Shannon's 178, Odell's 195, Chris Thompson 252, Johnson is 255, Ron Dugans is 276, Surtain, probably your best coach, 350, Tony Tarkas is 384. Now, Surtain, I know, is getting a bump to like $700K, so this is going to go higher, which she deserves. And I think I think Odell is staying around 600, so I know Surtain's getting a big bump in his salary, which she deserves. Do you think that, like, Odell's in the 200s of top paid assistants? Are you holding on to him because you're like, he's good enough for what we're paying him? And Florida State doesn't have the budget right now to pay more assistants more? Because once again, I want to make a comparison to some of the top programs in the country. Let's look at say Georgia's assistant coaching staff, and let's look at their defensive line coach and what they're paying him, because they recruit their defensive line at an elite level. Let's look at that. So look at their top. They have 4 coaches in the top 50. They got Glenn Schumann, who I believe Glenn Schumann is their defensive coordinator / inside linebackers coach. So you would assume that he's recruiting all the defense and helping out with linebackers. He's their number 4 paid coach. So similar to Florida State, highly paid guy, but helps with linebackers, top paid coach. That makes sense. Then you got Trey Scott, $1 million. $1 million. What does Trey Scott do? He's their defensive line coach. Top 50 paid assistant coach, making $1 million. Odell's making $600K. They've made an investment to get the right coach to recruit the trenches. You know what Georgia does? They sign 4 guys per cycle that are 4 and 5 recruits, while Florida State signs 3 guys every 3 cycles. I mean, that shows the investment where they're getting the best coaches and retain the best coaches for the trenches to recruit the trenches. That's what that shows me. Linebackers, defensive line, let's get the best, let's pay the best coaches to get the best talent, right? And do their job. Because if we learned anything we saw what Georgia can do. And obviously it was 1s versus 3, stuff like that. But I think we can all agree that Georgia runs the program the right way in terms of getting the right talent. But when you're Florida State's paying Odell $600K, and you're not happy with the results of that, you have to sometimes look at yourself and say, are we saving money? Like, is there a reason why we're not getting results too? Is it because, we're not investing enough in that position coach, right? Should we go and pay a guy? Can we afford to pay a guy $1 million a year, right? When we already have an offensive line coach and a defensive coordinator making $1 million. So I think that's just an interesting tidbit, right? It's something to think about, because we're paying an offensive line coach $1 million and a defensive coordinator, and we recruit defensive backs in an elite level, but Patrick Surtain's the one that's overseeing that for the most part, and he's probably we're getting our most ROI on that right now, but he's going to get a pay bump too. So just something to think about there and get your thoughts on. So I thought that was interesting. But what does Atkins really do as the OC? He is, and neither of you're correct. We know Norvell's calling the plays. So the OC title is really just a pay raise tool, right? It's for him to say, put that on his resume, co-OC. That's just a resume building tool. And it's a tool for him to get a pay raise, right? To say, this is a title, so I can get this $1 million per year. You're totally right. It's not like Atkins is calling plays. And in my eyes, it's not adding to his skill set right now in terms of him being the playbook and calling plays. I don't really, maybe it helps in him recruiting, because he can say, well, as the co-OC, I'll be working with you on X, Y, and Z. Maybe that helps him recruiting. I don't know that. It's not just about how much you're paying the position coach. It's about how many off the field people you have. That is true. Grillmaster, you're totally right on that. The off the field guys and the guys you don't see on the field or in the shadows, and kind of the directors of recruiting and their assistants and stuff like that, you're totally right. Like an NFL organization, the guys and girls in the shadows, doing their thing, you're totally right. Because like your comment says, it's very much like an NFL organization nowadays. You have to be invested in getting these off-field people and letting them do their thing, whether it's monitoring the portal or having guys in different regions who are recruiting kids and putting feelers out there and scouting, whatever it is. You're right. You have to. And Florida State just lost their, was it the director of recruiting operations, or I think he's going to Duke, I believe it was. So you're definitely right. It's that investment in those positions you don't see publicly. You're totally right, Grillmaster. That's a really good point. So I've made my point about that. Can't change it now. Florida State is invested in these coaches, and now Mike Norvell's tied to these guys. The only way this changes is if Randy Shannon gets a head coaching role, or if Alex Atkins gets a head coaching role, or John Papachius gets a head coaching role. That's the only way this changes. Or And maybe this works out. Maybe they start recruiting their tail off, because they should be recruiting their tail off. This team, like I keep saying, is 23-4, 23-3 over the past 2 years. It has a great NIL collective behind them. There is no reason in hell we should not have top 5 classes. Who the hell doesn't want to play at Florida State? Why shouldn't they want to play at Florida State? Like, you're about to send multiple guys to the NFL now, receivers, running backs, defensive. These coaches have no excuse for why we shouldn't be getting elite talent anymore, right? No excuses why we should be showing up outside of a top 10 class at the end of the day. This should not happen anymore. There's no more excuses for you guys. You extended to Mike Norvell. They're your responsibility. You have to be in the top 10. That's it. There's no more excuses. So yeah, let's support these guys because we're tied to them, and let's hope that they recruit their tails off. And now let's move into our next segment, which is the portal. What does Florida State do in the portal to address this depth chart? Because as we know, some of the recruiting struggles have led to challenges on the roster in terms of we lost a ton of guys, and we have to go in the portal and we have to talk about who can we fill the depth chart with, right? So as it was reported on Noles Game Day and 24/7 and Tomahawk Nation, this is a big recruiting weekend for Florida State. It started today, right? Florida State had a couple of visitors today. They had a kid from Furman in this week, O-lineman, big guy, 2-time all-conference player at Furman. Once again, that's a conference FCS school. So, but Florida State's had some success with FCS kids, obviously. Jared Verse, to name one. But Florida State, I believe, needs to get at least 2 offensive linemen, to shuffle along that offensive line, whether it's guard or what say you. Because when you look at the offensive line and what you have and what you're losing, obviously you're going to lose Casey Roddick, you're going to lose Dimitri Emmanuel, eligibility. You're going to bring back Marie Smith, Darius Washington, Jeremiah Byers, Keandre Jones. Once again, you're bringing back basically the same offensive line minus 1 or 2 pieces. So your line is going to be the same. You should expect the same performance from your line, but how do you get better this year? And you're looking at the kid, I forget his name off the top of my head. Remind me if you can, Chad. You're looking at the guy from the backup offensive lineman from Alabama. I believe, Florida State recruited him out of high school. So you're looking to bring him in for a visit. He may already be confirmed for a visit this weekend. You're looking to bring him in. You also are looking at, like I said, Pearson Toomey from Furman. They brought him in for a 2-day visit. You're also one other guy. His name's Terrence Ferguson from Clemson, or from Alabama. I'm sorry. So you lost him in a recruiting battle a couple of years ago. So you already have a connection with him. 6'4", 322, can play guard or center. So, and the good thing about him is that he has experience playing time. You need a guy with experience, right? You don't want to bring a true sophomore with no playing time, and you need a guy that has experience. And this guy has 11 games. Kid at Furman obviously has multiple years of experience. So they like Terrence Ferguson from Alabama. And they're looking to get him on campus. And obviously that goes in line with you're trying to recruit. And I think Brendan already crystal balled Earl Little Jr. For Florida State already, because they got him on the visit, defensive back. I don't know if defensive back is a position of need for Florida State right now, but it's good to have more than less. Once again, score another visit for Patrick Surtain, basically gobbling up every talented defensive back he can. So we may have to play like a 3-man front and just let the defensive backs play man-to-man and hope the linebackers can do what they do. But yeah, Terrence Ferguson is going to be on campus this weekend. He arrived, I think they said today, along with Earl Little Jr. So you have 2 Alabama guys on campus. So I think Ferguson would be a good get. I would probably trust him over the Furman kid, but I would take both, honestly, if you can afford to get both. My real question is, what is our scholarship count at? I've seen counts at 5 scholarships still available. I've seen some counts at 9 available. Some people said, because someone, Noles Game Day did an article that says right now the count is at 80 of 85 scholarships are currently allocated. And that included Goldie Lawrence going into the portal. So if anyone has the accurate count of scholarships, I would like to know that, because right now it looks like Florida State only can allocate 5 more scholarships unless they churn a couple of guys out on this roster. So it's 85, I believe, Corey. So that's a good question. How many scholarships does the NCAA allow? 185. If it's 85, we have to make room. If no linebacker depth, O-line, D-tackle, need a vet flanker. Yeah, I agree. I believe it's 85. That's what Noel's Game Day tweet said, that it was. We were at 80 of 85 allocated right now. So that would make me think that we have only 5 available, and we would have to, once again, churn out some more of this roster if we want to add some positions of need. Grillmaster says estimated 78, the update yesterday, so that would mean 7. Okay, so 7 available. Okay, so 7 I think is a good number that you can work with. I think that would be a really good number that you can work with, because to me, you need to add 2 linebackers, 2 offensive linemen, well, at least 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive two defensive linemen, 1 being line, 1 being edge, probably 2, maybe 2 edge. So I'm counting up 5 or 6 minimum at that. And you're right, Grillmaster. Classes start next week, so you're running out of runway for guys to be eligible for the spring, right? So you really, and people are going to be flooding the portal. You're absolutely right. So the deadline is getting close. So you're going to see guys pop here real quick. Now the portal does reopen in April again, but if you want guys eligible for the spring, right, you need to get them in now, which is the big one, because we didn't get Keon Coleman until in the April window last year. So you may not get everyone right now, but you obviously want to get guys in earlier than later so you can get them into the program, get them kind of in the swing of things, which is why it was so important to get DJ now, getting around his teammates, get those relationships going. So it's better to get them now than later, so you know what your roster looks like. That doesn't mean all is lost if you don't get these guys now, but I agree it's better to get them now rather than later. What's going on, Dagby? Thanks for coming by. So if we're looking at 6, I like, and Florida State's hosting a bunch of receivers. And I think the receiver bit, my whole take on the receiver bit has been, I believe Florida State needs, I say dogs versus puppies. What I mean by that is I think Florida State needs a couple of vets in this room. And what I mean by is that, look at who you lost. You lost Johnny Wilson. You lost Keon Coleman. You lost your dogs in the room. You lost your vets. Those are guys that you could go to when you need a big play. You need a first down. As much as we dog Johnny Wilson for his hands, it seemed like whenever you need a big 3rd down over the middle, or he was willing to go over. Like, you could count on him sometimes when you needed him to do things, and when you didn't need him to do things, that's when he dropped things, right? But Johnny Wilson was a great player at Florida State, and so was Keon Coleman. But those are your dogs. Those are your vets in the locker room in the wide receiver position. Your leading receiver last year or next year is going to be Ja'Kai Douglas, who had like 200 yards. I think this room is too young. It's got a lot of potential in it, a lot of potential talent. Destin Hill, Hakeem Williams, and all the guys you just brought in, right? You had a great recruiting class in terms of skill position players in this last class. But I think you need a vet that can kind of be the guy to one be the leader in that receiver room. And I'm not saying Ja'Kai Douglas can't. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying I think you need a big play guy, especially not in the slot. Ja'Kai is a slot guy, right? With him and Destin Hill, we'll fight for that. But I think you need that X or Z position. I think you need a dog in that position who has, whether it's the guy from FAU. I don't think it's the kid from LSU. I know Florida State and everyone's getting excited for the kid from LSU who they recruited a year ago. But once again, that kid is unproven. That's just it's like another freshman you're bringing in. That guy hasn't proven anything. Why are we looking to recruit another young guy into the room that's already young? That's why Goldie Lawrence is leaving, right? Because he's like, you're bringing in another young kid into an already young room. Why am I going to stay here? We need a veteran in this room to lead this room that DJ can rely on. That is my opinion. Get the kid from Oregon State. I forget his name. I think it's right. He just entered the portal. Like, he had 600 or 700 yards with DJ last year. Get a guy like that. Get a safety blanket for DJ, and then let him build up the younger players. Right? and hopefully bring them along. But I would hate for DJ, veteran quarterback, to be surrounded by bunch of unproven, untested receivers, and us to go into game one against Georgia Tech in Ireland and hope that they perform on the field in game one. That seems like a scary scenario to me. We're going to get to see some attrition at receiver. Grillmaster, I totally agree with you. I think, like, I could see Joshua Burrell, going. I could see Darian Williamson or Kentron going. I think that is definitely a position that would definitely make sense for attrition. And I wouldn't blame those guys at all. You just run a ton of receivers again. The room is extremely young. And a lot of those guys are going to be seniors next year. And they have gotten no play time or enough snaps in the position to guarantee that they'll get it this year. So I would agree with you. If any position can afford to churn out, it would be the receiver group. I would agree with you there. Pete says, keep an eye on the D-line trenches. I will be. Peter, I definitely will be keeping an eye there because we need to keep an eye on that. Destin Hill, I want Destin Hill to break out so badly. He showed flashes in the Georgia game. How many times to get behind this Georgia defensive backs? We just couldn't deliver the ball. So, I think DJ will be the guy that'll be able to deliver him the ball next year. So I'm excited for that. You need a couple of receiver route running. Yes. And that's what I'm saying. I don't want to go to Ireland on the road. I don't care if we're playing Georgia Tech or Texas Tech or Tennessee Tech. When you go on the road, overseas, different environment, and you have a bunch of young guys that have very few snaps with a new quarterback. I don't want to, I want a guy who's been there, done that before. 3 seasons under his belt, 90 plus receptions. Just get the kid from Morgan State if he's willing to come across the country. I think that would be the perfect. GJ needs a safety blanket, in my opinion. Give him a guy that he feels comfortable with throwing the ball, so that on third and 5, 3rd and 6, boom, he gets to that guy, move the chains, and then let these other guys come along. Let him find his secondary receiver. Who's going to be his other safety blanket on the other side, and let that. I think Ja'Kai can be the other guy. Ja'Kai, if he stays healthy, I think he could have a very big year next year. I love Ja'Kai. He just hasn't been healthy at all when he's been at Florida State. But that guy has so much potential. He just has to stay healthy. But I think he could also have a big year with DJ. That could be a great connection for this team. He just needs to stay healthy. Yes. So Dag, you're talking about Stewart. Honestly, I think that's more smoke than real. I don't think Florida State's in that battle at all. Once again, I don't know anything. I am not an insider. My title should say that, but I don't think Florida State's actually in that battle. I don't think they win that. But once again, I would be, if that is true and they win that, I think that could be a great addition. Or the kid at FAU, DeJounte, I believe his name is. He had 1,400 yards last year. Get some guys that's done it before. That's all I'm asking. So that is the one thing with a receiver. If you're going to bring a guy in, bring a guy with experience in. The running back group. Florida State's hosting multiple running backs. I'm a little perplexed with that, right? Is it that the coaching staff is not impressed with what they see in Keziah? Once again, Lawrence Toafili had surgery. We expect him to be back. I like Toafili. I think he can take in this, as we know by Norvell by now, he likes to rotate guys. It's not a one back gets it all, right? He's going to running back by committee a little bit. You got Toafili. You got Sam Singleton. You got Cam Davis, who I expect Cam Davis to get carries next year. That guy looks like a man. That's what I'm talking about. When you recruit elite talent, that's what they look like. They look like Cam Davis. Cam Davis is built to play day one. That's what elite talent looks like. 5-star talent looks like. Built to play. But Florida State is hosting, if you didn't see it, they're hosting one of the backups from Alabama. He'll be coming in this weekend, I believe. They're trying to get him in. They're hosting the guy from Toledo. I mean, they're looking to bring in another running back. So what does that tell me? That tells me, A, they're expecting maybe some churn from the room. That's one thing. B, the other thing I tell you is that they're looking for another playmaker in the room. Now, some people weren't necessarily very impressed with what Keziah showed in the Georgia game. I don't know if that's extremely fair. Some people said he looked a little slow. He didn't look great. I don't know if the Georgia game's a fair assessment of his skill set. That Georgia game just was not. It wasn't great for anybody on tape. Let's just be honest. But to be fair, that was our starting offensive line for the most part, right? That is who he's going to be running behind. Now, is he going to be running against a elite defensive Georgia line every single week? No, he won't be. But that will be the offensive line he'll be running behind. So does Florida State feel that they need another playmaker alongside Keziah? Or do they need to replace what they lost in Rodney Hill? Do they need another, guy that isn't afraid to bounce it off a guy or bounce it outside, right? So you got Roydell Williams that they're looking to bring in. He had really, this guy that has experience. This is a guy that accumulated a good amount of carries last year at Alabama. Alabama runs a deep running back room like Florida State does. He had some kickoff returns, 500 yards last year, 5 touchdowns, averaged 5.5 per carry, I believe, last year. And the kid from Toledo had like 1,400 yards. So you have the guy from Toledo had a ton of yardage, and then you have the kid from Alabama who obviously is very talented and had 500 yards in the Alabama in a deep room there. So I just got to say, what does this tell you about the Florida State running back room? Is it that he just wants 3 primary backs that he feels really good about? Because he brings this guy in, you're telling Cam and Sam Singleton that you shouldn't be excited to play next year, because it would be Toe Philly, it would be Keziah, and it would be Roydell and or the Toledo kid. So you're not going to play 5 running backs, right? Mike wants 3 running backs. So I just think this sends a bad sign to the freshmen you brought in. Right? Doesn't it? Unless you expect somebody to leave. I don't completely understand this unless he feels one of those guys is not ready to play. He needs unless he really does feel one of them isn't a true playmaker, or he needs more playmaking ability in the running back room. And I agree with Dagny. Cam Davis looks like he's ready to play the game. He should be competing for snaps right away. I just think bringing in another back sends the wrong message to the guys in the room. I don't know. But I'm never against bringing in more talent, because I think it pushes everybody to get better. So if you think if Mike Norvell thinks bringing in 6 running backs is the answer and that will push everybody, and if a guy leaves based on that, great, leave. I mean, do what's best for you. And I do think it may cause a guy to leave. But, if he thinks that's, once again, trust Mike. That's the saying, trust Mike. If Mike thinks he needs another running back to push the talent up a level, do it. Do it, because he sees these guys every day. So do it. But I just don't totally get the decision. That says 4 running backs, including the freshman. We don't really need more. Yeah, I don't totally get it. Don't totally get it. So it's probably going to be Toe Philly, Holmes, and the Porter running back. If Samson and Tam beat them at Holmes, then maybe the transfers again in the spring. Yeah, but that's the part that scares me, because, either Sam or Cam. I don't think Cam would transfer after 1 year of not playing, but you may lose Sam. You would definitely lose Sam. If Sam doesn't play at all next year, you will lose him. But you may be okay with that, right? You may say, Sam needs another year of development to get his body bigger and learn to see the whole whatever. Like I said, this is all hypothetical. But that's what Mike Norvell may be saying. One of these younger guys needs more time to develop. And you may say, well, if he hasn't developed, we may be okay with him saying, I need to go somewhere else. And then you have Cam Davis ready. That may be that you may be right on that. You may be right on that. Pete, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for the 499 super sticker. Thank you so much. We appreciate that, Peter. And once again, we appreciate your comments and your support for the show. Thank you so much, Pete. That is very much appreciated. And the old man would be doing the music and the lights. He's celebrating somewhere, so appreciate that, Pete. But Thank you again. Always appreciate it. It's great on a Friday to have you here and everyone to be here. So appreciate all the comments, everyone. But once again, that's the running back room. We'll see what happens. So out of all these guys we just discussed, who do you guys want? Do you guys want the guy from Alabama? Pete, who do you want? Do you guys want the guy from Alabama? Do you guys want the kid from Toledo? Or is there another guy in the board that you want? Because these are the two main guys I've seen Florida State talk about. I mean, if you had your pick of the litter right here, who would you pick? Who would you pick? I think I personally pick. I like the kid from Toledo, but I think I would pick the higher star guy out of Alabama. I mean, if you get 500 yards out of Alabama, you got some talent on you, right? In that room, I'm going to take a chance on the kid from Alabama, but we'll see what happens. The last couple of guys that we talked about. So we've been talking about on defensive end position, and I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I'm not going to insult him by pronouncing this incorrectly. Well, Sione, I'm going to just say Sione. I think this would, out of all the defensive ends I've heard them talk about so far, I think this guy looks legit. So Tomac Nation reported this amongst other places, is that they're looking to bring this guy in for a visit. Once again, close relationship with DJ, played at Oregon State together. This guy that was all Pac-12 team, second team last year, 6'3", 265, 1 year of eligibility left, 8 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 1.5 sacks. I think a great rotational piece. Could be, like it says in the article, starter upside. I think this is a guy you could get along with another defensive end. This isn't a guy that's going to be pissed off if you bring in another piece alongside him. This is a great potential, a guy that has a lot of upside that would be a great rotational piece for what Florida State wants to run on the edge. Like, this is a great, you bring 2 or 3 defensive line or two defensive linemen and rotate him with Patrick Payton and one of these other guys you're looking to bring at. This would be a great addition. The issue with this guy, I think, is that he's from California. Does he want to move across the country? Like, it seems like USC and Oregon are looking at him. Does he want to uproot his life for 1 year to move to Tallahassee? Like, that's literally like a diagonal change and move for him for 1 year. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for him. He may love everything Florida State's done and how they've developed the position in terms of what they've done with portal guys. But I don't know if you're going to convince a guy to make that thousands of miles of travel change for 1 season. So that's the issue I have with the recruitment here. But I think this would be a great rotational piece for the defensive end position for Florida State. Going back, I don't know about Sam leaving that soon. Tofili Holmes and portal running back would all leave this season. Pretty clear runway for the young back to join that. I think that's a great comment, and I would agree with you there. Pete said, "Don't be surprised if the linemen are too jumped during the second transfer period." Hint, hint. Oh, that Pete, I think you're right, and what we talked about earlier. To your point is that I overreacted a little bit to this first transfer period. I think we all did. I think we all do a little bit because Florida State made so many moves in the early transfer period last year, right? You got a lot of the big names last year in the early transfer period. And we forgot that there is these 2 periods. You have the winter and then you have the spring one. And you're seeing a lot of talent now still enter, with all these Alabama. How many Alabama guys just dropped in, right? Today and yesterday, and Georgia guys dropped in, and how many Michigan guys will now drop in the coming days, and Texas guys, Washington guys, stuff like that. So, like you said, I think you're right. And we may lose a couple of guys too on our, we may see a couple of our own guys drop after the spring game. You'll see a lot of guys drop after the spring games, to your point, to see where they are in the depth chart. You'll see a lot more talent. So we don't have to give up all hope is lost if we don't land all the talent we need now. But I do think it's better to get them in early rather than late. You want to get them kind of acclimated to the program, get them into conditioning, get them on campus to kind of get in the group. But to your point, Pete, you don't have to get, I don't think we have to get all doom and gloom and not forget about that second period. I think you're totally right there. Oh, Grimmaster, is that right? Did he already commit? Well, that's a great pickup for them. That's a really good pickup for them and fits their scheme really well because They need a weapon, to go along with that quarterback. So that's a great picker for them if that's true. So good for them. Louisville's, I mean, they're doing things the right way there. I think behind Florida State, they're probably them and Clemson, Louisville, and Florida State are, I think, the top 3 programs right now in the ACC. It's easy for me to say that after Louisville just got to the conference game, but I think Louisville's running their program the right way with Braum. They're recruiting their ass off right now. So good for them. They've that's a really good pickup for them if that's true. Yeah, I really liked Jahante. I believe I'm saying his name right at FAU. That guy, he's small. I think that's the issue. What people are saying is that they, Florida State wanted, they like their big receivers, but now, that's the funny thing. Florida State fans were telling me before that, Mike Norvell doesn't want these small receivers. He wants the big guys like Keon and and Johnny Wilson and and Hakeem and stuff like that. Now they're telling me that we need smaller receivers because we need to get behind the defensive backs. So I don't know if Florida State fans know what Mike Norvell wants in terms of receivers. It's kind of funny. Sorry, LeJohntay Wester, that's his name. But that's because I talked about LeJohntay a couple of months ago. I liked him. But he's only 5'11", 167. So he's a small guy. Like, he is a really kind of undersized guy and kind of goes against what Florida State has recruited, primarily for those big positions. But the guy has speed and he has big playmaking ability, as you can see in his numbers. So, and I don't think it's true that Florida State doesn't have guys that can get behind defensive backs. I mean, you have Destin Hill. You saw the speed that Hakeem Williams has on, I forget what game it was, where he basically ran between two defensive backs from a standstill. Tate threw in the ball. It was a blowout, but he threw in the ball and he just sped through the defensive backs with speed. I don't think any of us knew he had. I think Florida State has plenty of speed at the receiver position. But I think it's just about who's going to fit with the quarterbacks the best. Who's the right fit for this culture, for this kind of offensive scheme overall. I think that's it. But I don't think. I think we have enough big guys. Hakeem's a big guy. I think you have a good mixture on this team right now. I don't think. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not an expert here. 2,700 yards, 21 touchdowns. I'm not going to argue against that. You could say it's FAU, but I mean, production is production, right? Production is production. I like that. I like that. And you need a guy that has experience like that. A guy that's not afraid to make a big play when you need a big play made. That's what I want to see Florida State pick up. I don't want, no offense to kid at LSU, the 4-star guy that Florida State likes. I don't need another young guy with potential. I need production, not potential. That's what I want on this team. I'm tired. A lot of potential on this team at the receiver position. I need production. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. Penny Boone commits. Okay, thank you for confirming that. That's a great pickup. That guy's a hell of a player. It'll be exciting to see what he does there. That's a great pickup for Louisville. Yeah, they are hitting the portal very hard, and they should. I mean, imagine if they had a decent quarterback last year, right? I think that's where they took a chance at the portal last year, and I think Louisville fans weren't very happy with their outcome at quarterback, especially late on in the season. But they're and they know, and they're like Ole Miss, right? Ole Miss knows they're not going to be able to recruit out of high school in the top 10, and Kiffin, I think, will admit that, and he says we have a window right now. In terms of they have great talent on their team and they're going to go all in on the transfer portal. And you saw Ole Miss do that. They think that they can make a run at the title next year, and they went all in on the portal this year because they know they're not going to out recruit Alabama, Georgia, all these SEC powerhouses in high school. So they're just going all in on the portal, and it may work out for them next year. It'll be really interesting. But you see that strategy, and I think you'll see a lot more of these mid-tier like Louisville's and stuff like that. Maybe, probably, some of these ACC schools, they're going to try probably to go more all in on the portal because they're not going to be able to out recruit Florida State in the high school level, right? And they're going to try to swing more at the fences in the portal because that's going to be the best way for them to compete, honestly, at the higher tier level. Well, exactly. Tyreek Hill's a small guy, but you ain't catching him in the open field. You just got to deliver him the ball. If DJ can deliver the ball in the open field, it's money, right? It's money. And we know how ACC refs like to call pass interference, so you can't put a hand on the guy. Well, sometimes you can if it's a Florida State receiver. But yeah, you're right. You need a combination of tall, dominating, shorter, fat. Yeah, and I think Florida State has. If Hakeem Williams comes out ready to play next season, which I hope he is. Once again, some of these guys that were highly recruited, that's this coaching staff did land. I'm not going to just shit on the staff all the time. The staff has landed some highly talented guys like Hakeem Williams. Going into his sophomore year, Williams needs to be ready to step up. Some of these highly recruited guys need to be ready to step up when they have the opportunity. Next year is Hakeem Williams' opportunity. He needs to come in and be ready to compete. Right? That's how a team that has a lot of potential makes the playoffs. It's guys that you brought in who are 5-star guys. They play to their potential, right? That's how teams win. That's how teams go to the playoffs. These 5-star guys that you brought in, they have to be ready to compete by their sophomore year. They can't be 3 or 4 years down. They have to be ready to play. So I'm hoping him, Destin Hill are ready to play and compete at a high level next year. To your point. Bama Kids game. Exactly. Bama Kids are game ready, especially with 500 yards and 5.5 per carry, 100% game ready. So I think that would be a massive get, especially too. Earl Little, if you get him too, defensive backs would be putting on the show. I'm excited for that. You will. Louisville wants to get an ACC crown, another one before Miami does. You know that. Louisville wants to get a crown before Miami does, or at least before. They may be able. If Florida State leaves the ACC and Clemson does too, Louisville will dominate the ACC. They will. If Florida State, Clemson leave the ACC, Louisville's going to get all the ACC crowns easily. Who did they get for a quarterback? Is Plumlee back? Is he coming back for Louisville? Does he still have eligibility? Are they still looking? I'm trying to look up. Or what? Plummer. Is Plummer coming back next year for Louisville? Does he have any eligibility left? Because you're right. I don't know who's going to be the quarterback next year. That's a good question. Yeah, I'm just interested in, because we're more likely to meet Louisville in the ACC championship. Like you said, we don't play them in the regular season, but I think of any of the teams in the ACC, they're the ones I would think that we're most likely to meet them in the ACC championship out of any. Because I think, like I said, it's them and Clemson I'm most worried about, right? I don't. If we play the way we need to play, that's who I kind of fear the most. Obviously, we have to play at Notre Dame, but play at Notre Dame, Clemson, at Miami, stuff like that. But let's be honest. In the in terms of coaching ability and talent, I think those combination of coaching ability and the ability to coach your talent, I think it's Louisville. It's us, Louisville, and then Clemson, right? Miami has a ton of talent, but they just aren't coached well enough, right? I think we can all agree that Miami has a crap ton of talent on that team. They just aren't coached well. Can you imagine if Florida State had some of that talent they have in the trenches on Florida State? It's like if we had some of those guys on some of those edge players they have, some of those O-line players they have on Miami on this team, I think it would be unbelievable. Because I do believe that this Florida State staff can really coach up guys extremely well. Extremely well. And I think that's the part that's holding Miami back. But, yeah. I tend to agree that Hakeem has to have a breakout year next year. Put his name on the map, then have a big... Yeah. I'm waiting for, him... He definitely, I need to see something for him. And I put him and Destin Hill. I mean, Hakeem was the 5-star guy, but Destin Hill was also highly recruited. Those two need to show something. I mean, God, how long did we wait for Destin Hill to show up? How long did this staff stay committed to Destin Hill? Right? Those two need, this is their, they're going to have an opportunity. There's no doubt in my mind those guys will have an opportunity to make big plays next year, right? And they need to make big plays if this team wants to succeed. They have to be prepared, developed and prepared to step up next year, right? There's no excuses. There's zero excuse. I mean, they even got playing time this year. I mean, Dustin Hill got on the field a lot this year. In my eyes, compared for how late he got into the program, he got on the field a lot this year. I was a little disappointed that Hakeem didn't get as much snaps on the field this year as highly recruited as he was. So I hope to see him on the field a lot more this season. I really do. Yeah, agreed. So yeah, I mean, that's it. And then Florida State is also bringing in, as the article states, the linebacker from we talked about Grady Kelly, Stephon Thompson from Syracuse. I'm not big on this kid as much. Once again, I'm not going to turn down any linebacker that wants to come to Florida State. I mean, he's got decent numbers, but 20 tackles for loss, 10.5 sacks, 169 tackles overall, 4 fumbles in 36 career games. So he has a lot of experience. And as the article says, he played more of the edge role at Syracuse. It would be interesting, how he's actually utilized at Florida State. And once again, I don't think this is like a game-changing linebacker for Florida State. Is this more like a DJ Lundy replacement for Florida State? Maybe. This isn't a once again, you need more bodies in the linebacking room. You need game ready. This is a game ready linebacking body. He's played in the ACC a lot. He's made plays. This is what you need because you don't have game ready bodies in the linebacking room. So there's not many guys you can turn down right now that are interested in Florida State. That's the issue in the linebacking core. This guy, I do believe you have to get. Decay Hill-Green from Charlotte. Once again, he started at Michigan. Florida State recruited him. They were in his recruiting battle 2 or 3 years ago. 6'2", 232. Had a big year at Charlotte this past season with 2 sacks, 73 tackles, all conference honors. Thing is, he's currently committed to UCF out of the portal. And who are you battling? Ernie Sims, who's currently a coach at UCF. So you're kind of battling your own blood for him. Once again, this is the guy I think could be a really good player for you. Because he went to Michigan for a reason. Things don't always work out. But I think this is a very talented guy. So definitely you need to land this kid in my eyes. I think you definitely have to get this kid, but getting both the guys would be a good start. Because I think we all agree you have to get at least 2 or 3 bodies in the linebacker room. At least 2 or 3 bodies in the linebacking room, right? Minimum. Syracuse linebacker is a good run stuffer. A couple of years of eligibility gives him some runway. No, you're right. And Grillmaster, I think we all agree that I prefer a guy that has multiple years of eligibility because that kind of fills some of that gap for you. That gives you more runway, to your point, in terms of improvement, development, and runway to make sure that you can backfill that guy when he leaves versus a 1-year loan where you're scrambling again to see who else do I have to bring in right after him. So I think to your point, there is more upside there versus a 1-year loan on a guy. You're totally right. Once again, ideal use case is both of them. Get the guy and get the kid from Syracuse. Both of them have great experience. Both of them have pretty good upside and are game ready. And that gives then Blake Nicholson, that gives Justin Cryer, gives those guys and gives Omar Graham more time, the ability to rotate and also more time to develop into what they feel comfortable doing. Because in my eyes, those guys are not ready to start. Not one of those guys ready to start for Florida State. Now, we may disagree on that. things may change in the offseason, but Blake Nicholson needs to build up his body. He needs to get a lot bigger. Frankly, Blake Nicholson needs to get a lot bigger. But, I mean, that's just a product of him being a true freshman. And once again, he wasn't a true linebacker in high school either. He was playing running back and he was playing multiple positions in high school. So, he's just got to develop himself into a true linebacker. And I think in a year or two, he can be a really, really good player. Really good player. Reminds you of Bethune. I mean, if we get a guy like Bethune, if that Syracuse kid is like Bethune, sign me up right now. Give him the NIL deal, sign me up. Because Bethune's one of the, I mean, that combination of Bethune and Deloach was a great combination. But you know what made Bethune and Tatum Bethune and Deloach so good was the play of the defensive line. I mean, the linebackers can only play as good as defensive line plays, and the defensive backs only play as good as the defensive line and linebackers play because, they all, it's a symbiotic relationship, right? So that's why, we got to take care of the defensive line and who we bring in there. Got to take care of the linebackers who we bring in there because as we saw against Georgia, if the defensive line breaks down, linebackers' job gets a lot harder and they got to cover more field and they got to figure out which gap is they got to fill or where the running back's going. And it just breaks down from there. But if this kid is like Tatum Bethune, sign me up right away. Sign me up right away. Yeah, the Q's linebackers are actually pretty good. One of the high points on that team. Yeah, you're totally right there. I would sign me. Give me both these kids if they're interested. Get the Battle's End involved. Let's sign me up because we need talented bodies. We just need guys who can consistently do their job, just like Tatum Bethune and Kalen Deloach did. Get guys who are willing to hit, can see the hole, fill it, and can cover in space consistently. I mean, if they make some mistakes, that's fine. But we need some guys that can consistently fill the hole, attack the ball, cover in space, and I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. So, guys, we covered a lot. I think it's good that Florida State's finally getting guys to visit, and these are pretty talented kids. I think if we sign Earl, if we get a commitment this weekend from Earl Little Jr., that would be a positive sign. I think that may roller coaster ourselves into signing the kid from Alabama, the running back. That may be a package deal. I think we have a decent shot at the kid from Oregon State. We talked about defensive end. I just think that distance thing may be hard to sell. It's going to be hard for a California kid to make that cross. I mean, DJ's doing it, but I mean, yeah, I think it may be hard. But I think we may get a couple pops this weekend. So be looking out for that. Get excited for that. I think maybe a fun weekend for transfer for filling in some of these gaps. So yeah, get excited for that. It may be a fun weekend. But I'm going to close out there. Really good discussion, guys. I appreciate you all coming by. And on the bright side, as this comment says here, UM's still trying to find their identity. They're trying to find their quarterback. Luckily, we don't have to. So Pete, great comment. We don't have to figure out who our quarterback is. We got DJ, who by all accounts is a great guy, a true leader. It's great when you can go from Jordan Travis right over to DJ. I mean, talk about a continuity between a program. We're lucky to be able to do that. I mean, DJ, from all interviews, true leader. He picked Florida State for the right reason. He's and it's great for a guy like Brock and Luke to be able to learn from a guy like that, who's been in big scenarios, big situations. Those guys will be able to learn immensely from a guy like DJ. So this is a great scenario for Florida State. So I'm excited to see what he can do for Florida State. And I just hope we can bring a couple of receivers, a veteran receivers around him and give him. And once again, I hope they're saying, DJ, who do you like in the portal? Who would you like to throw to? Who looks attractive to you in terms of who do you think you make big plays with? So we'll see what happens. But yeah, thank you all for coming by on your Friday. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you, Pete, once again for the super chat. But I appreciate you all for coming by. Have a great Friday. Have a great rest of your weekend. Hopefully we'll get some portal pops this weekend. And next week we'll do another special show, talk about what's new, what's trending, And yeah, stay safe this weekend. Enjoy it. Stay out of trouble, and we'll see you soon. And hopefully the old man will be by next time. I'll try to wrangle him, and we'll see where he is. But have a good one, guys. Take care. Go Knowles. See you soon.